How can Telstra stay on top of the Aussie telco pile?
And what can we learn from 20 years of Google? Vertical Hold, Behind the Tech News, is proudly brought to you by Belkin.
Welcome to Vertical Hold, Behind the Tech News, where we talk to Australia's leading technology journalists to get the stories behind the news of the week. I'm Angus Kidman, and I'm joined by a man who nearly had a heart attack when I admitted last weekend to watching live sports, Adam Turner, as we go behind the headlines in search of the big picture.
It's true, I thought he'd been kidnapped.
We're joined once again to delve into the tech news of the week by Finder Editor-in-Chief Angus Kidman. Angus, welcome back to the show.
Hello, I'm confused. What is live sports?
I'll explain later. Also, later, we'll delve into what Telstra needs to do to stay on top of the Aussie telco pile, as well as look back at 20 years of Google and 10 years of the Chrome browser. But first, over to the tech news desk. Adam, what's happening in tech?
Hey trendsetters, Snapchat spectacles are back and looking a lot more fashionable than Snapchat's first effort. There are two new styles dubbed Nico and Veronica, which will set you back $199 each if you can get your hands on them, because they will be available in limited quantities in the US and a few European countries. Like the first generation of glasses, they feature a built-in HD video camera and microphone, letting you upload short clips to Snapchat.
Further leaks from Cupertino Central suggest that Apple will name its next iPhone family the iPhone XS, which inevitably everyone will call the iPhone XS, with three models, including an iPhone XS Max model featuring a 6.5-inch OLED display. With the state of the Australian dollar, don't expect too much change out of $2,000 for that one. We'll know more next week, with Apple's Gather Round event set to take place in the wee hours of the morning of September 13th here in Australia.
New NBN chief Stephen Rue has lifted the expected cost of the rollout by $2 billion, pushing up to $51 billion as part of the latest corporate plan. NBN expects to raise the extra cash from private sources sometime around 2020, putting pressure on the nationwide project to look like an attractive investment. $1 billion of that cost blowout is attributed to issues with the HFC cable network, which saw the rollout put on hold for about 6 months. Some of that extra money will also be put towards upgrading the fixed wireless networks after NBN was embarrassingly forced to scrap 100 megabit per second fixed wireless plans earlier this year.
News that will excite people like, well, me, in that the ABC has confirmed when it will air the next season of Doctor Who. It'll go to air on the 8th of October 2018, which is a Monday, although it's unlikely to bump Four Corners out of its spot on ABC One that night. No word as yet as to whether it'll fast-track Doctor Who for ABC iView, although the move to Mondays is largely because the BBC has decided to shift the long-running show to air in the UK on Sundays.
So, Alex, Doctor Who's back. It's the equivalent of the English Premier League in your household. How is this going to upset the rainforest, the ecosystem? Is the world going to fall apart because Doctor Who is moved?
Well, if you listen to certain elements of the Doctor Who fandom when these announcements were made, yeah, it's possibly the Endy-Wendy of timey-wimey. But realistically, it's not something in the ABC's decision-making matrix, because what's happened here is the BBC has looked at Doctor Who, they've gone, right, it costs us a certain amount of money, it is reportedly one of its most expensive series to make, and they have a public service remit to make the most out of the money they've got, and they're under the whole, UK austerity thing there as well. There's a lot of pressure on them in terms of the licence fee, so they've decided, right, well, we'll shift it to Sunday nights. And Sunday nights are Monday mornings here in Australia. That's the way, international time zones work. And as such, the ABC doesn't have a whole lot of choices. It's not a completely unique situation. The ABC did air some episodes of the Peter Davidson era on a Monday night, although that's quite a long time ago. Gus, I can recall actually sitting and watching some of those episodes on a Monday night. Is the move to Mondays particularly going to affect your Who viewing?
Well, no. And of course, you've got to remember that for that vintage review, Who viewing, mostly you hung around and you watched it 5 days a week. So it still feels slow in this environment. It's also worth reminding, obsessive fans are going in the UK, oh, you can't move it from a Saturday. But of course, in Peter Davison's era, again, they moved it to being twice a week on a Tuesday and a Thursday in the UK. So the broadcast date can get shifted. So No, it's not going to bother me. My prediction is that they will end up showing it on ABC2 on the Monday night for people who really want to see it, and then they'll end up showing it on a Thursday or a Friday during the week for people who prefer to watch it on the main channel. So I think that way they'll actually get some more value out of the broadcast.
But that means if you want to watch it in HD, you need to wait till later in the week.
Oh, diddums. Like, genuinely not.
Some people care about these things.
I know they do, but for me, it's like you can take, people should be grateful, I think. They should remember that we're really lucky that Doctor Who is still on the ABC at all, because the majority of shows that are on the BBC now, their first run rights actually go with BBC First on Foxtel. The only reason that the ABC has had a long-standing deal with the rights to Doctor Who, which actually also dates back. Everything dates back to the Fifth Doctor, because it dates back to when the ABC actually put in funding to make the Five Doctors back in, produced for the 20th anniversary of the show. And so that's why the ABC's had sort of special privileges ever since. So, remind yourself, would you rather that, the decision on when Doctor Who was going to be broadcast was in the hands of Foxtel or Channel 7? Because not sure that's going to work out so well for you.
I guess the one big change it will make for me is that and they haven't confirmed iView fast tracking anyway, although they are doing a simulcast on BBC America in the States apparently, so there's still hope. But when they were doing fast tracking iView, I would quite frequently, and I know I've discussed this on the show before for longer term listeners, I'd quite frequently get up early on a Sunday morning to do that. Now, I already get up early on a Monday morning, but that's because I'm going to work. I don't know that ABC iView first viewing figures on a Monday morning are going to be all that impressive on that basis, and maybe they won't even bother.
No, I think they'll bother because they don't care about iView figures within the moment that it goes out. They care about that over a week. And the fact is, if you can't watch it first thing on Monday, you can still, you're literally back in Game of Thrones territory. You've still just got to stay away from spoilers for a little bit, and then you dive on and you watch it as soon as you get home from work, which will still be ahead of when it's likely to go out on ABC2 if they do that. So I think it's likely they'll go with the iView setup. It's worked for them in the past. It lets them deal with those constituencies. They have a mandate to kind of broadcast where people need to see things, and they don't have to worry about ratings so much. So I suspect that I'll be very surprised if we don't see the iView thing again, because they've got a stake involved there.
So Adam, it's an interesting time if you're Telstra, with the nation's biggest carrier doing an awful lot of work to try and grab headlines as it tries to retain customers at the same time.
Yeah, they're finally going pretty much all in on the unlimited bandwagon. They've had unlimited plans for a while, but they haven't really pushed them hard. But now they're moving a lot more customers who are paying at least, if you're paying at least $90 a month for, this is fixed line we're talking, not mobile, chances are you're now on unlimited. They've put up about 600,000 more customers onto unlimited at no more cost. But of course, at no more cost when you're already probably paying more than what you would get unlimited for somewhere else. So it depends on how you want to look at it. So, Gus, what do you think? Is it worth doing? Are the people who are using Telstra, do they want unlimited? What's the thinking here?
I think you're right. I think it's very much about them trying to say, oh, hey, we have to be competitive. The reality is that if you're almost anybody else except Telstra now, then unlimited is what you go in. Like, no one's trying to distinguish themselves by saying you've got no data unless you're on one of those kind of tiny, what we call pension level 12-1 plans. And that's a different little world. So, I think Telstra can do it. It's not a big challenge or a risk for them to do it, because their own figures show that a lot of those customers actually aren't going near that, unlimited kind of thing. So it's not necessarily going to cost them a lot. They get a little bit of publicity, although it's tempered by the fact that it has people like us reminding everyone that, hey, Telstra always had less data on offer than anybody else. So, but it might be a little bit of short-term pain there, and then the long-term gain of going, oh, well, when someone compares their plans, they say, oh, well, it looks similar. It's unlimited. It seems to be about the same price. Maybe I won't, but I'll join that large group of people who just don't bother switching.
Yeah. And so, Alex, they had, I think, 100 gig plans and 500 gig plans, and the 500 gig have now become unlimited. Do those 100 gig plans look attractive considering they're only $20 cheaper? I think it's $69 a month.
Look, I think it depends on the kind of user that you are. For you, me, or Gus, no, I don't think 100 gig is going to necessarily cut it. Although Gus travels a lot, so maybe that's enough for him. But broadly, for heavier users, no, 100 gig is not enough. and unlimited would definitely be the way to go. It would make an awful lot more sense. But there are a lot of people out there for whom the internet is a useful part of their lives, but it's a very, very intermittent one. Gus kind of mentioned the pensioner crowd, but there's a lot of people who would simply use the online world for a little bit of email, maybe a little bit of social media, and 100 gig may as well be unlimited to them. And at that point, they're probably better served saving the $240 a year if they must stay with Telstra. I'd strongly say to those people, look, go and compare, sort out what you can get, because if you only need 100 gig or less, you can probably do a darn sight better than that 100 gig plan anyway. And especially with the NBN coming in, you do have an awful lot more choice, broadly speaking, although this also then kind of smoothly moves into the other area that Telstra has to be thinking about, which is the next couple of years, and especially in the post-NBN space, because it's now staring down the barrel, as we discussed just recently, of the TPG Vodafone merger, of Optus getting quite belligerent and, of course, winning certain unlimited battles against it, and then whichever of the smaller players survive. Gus, do you think Telstra's space as, the big Australian telco is absolutely assured?
I think it's going to be a long, slow disintegration because, they still have, you can see when you look at NBN signups, they're like they've still got the lion's share of it. They've definitely got stiff competition, but it's going to take a while for people to disappear from there. Telstra's been very adept at doing the bundling thing and saying to people, hey, buy all these things together. It still has a solid reputation for its mobile network, so once people are sort of in that ecosystem, they just don't like switching. So I do think its share will probably shrink a little bit, but just the way, as has been discussed also on this show many times, the way that things have been set up, Telstra had an advantage right from the start, and it's very hard to displace that. So I think, they'll need to be careful and they need to make moves like this, but I would be surprised if they still didn't have the dominant position in a couple of years' time. It's just, there's a structural advantage there that's really hard to dislodge.
I suppose they're also doing certain other things that other players are not doing in terms of the way they're rolling out mobile networks, even in terms of the way they're rolling out smart home stuff. I mean, just recently I went to their launch of their Telstra locator devices, which are there that'll find my, dog or find my valuable business property tags, which are going to use a combination of Wi-Fi and their mobile networks in a variety of ways. And that's not something that you see out of a Vodafone or out of an Optus. And maybe that's also where they can kind of maintain that position and, of course, maintain making a fair bit of money, because that NBN corporate report wasn't great for their bottom line either, was it, Adam?
No, it doesn't look good for them. It knocks some money off TPG's share price. Telstra lowered their earnings expectations, and a lot of it is because of the pushback. There's now about 1.3 million homes, I think, that are going to be delayed getting onto the NBN because of the HFC rollout delays, not to mention all the other issues. So that pushes it back for them, because I think they get payments when they transfer customers across to the NBN. Plus, of course, they're getting, the money from those customers when they're on the NBN. So it's kind of put a bit of a dampener on the NBN for everyone, really, from a retailer's perspective. It was interesting to see some of the stats coming out from Telstra when they announced this, just more generally about how the customers use the internet. They said that the average customer now uses 200 gig a month. So even they admit that their 100 gig a month plan doesn't suit even the majority of their customers. But our data usage keeps growing 40% year on year. Even people on ADSL, who are, it doesn't matter how crappy your ASL is, they're still managing to squeeze 23% more data out of it than last year. I don't know. I'm impressed anybody can do that on ADSL. So as a country, regardless of what connection technology you're on, we just seem to want more and more.
Absolutely, and it just reminds you of the stupidity of the discussions that have happened over the life of the NBN, where everyone going, well, why would you need that? And who on earth is possibly going to want to use that amount of stuff? And you just think, there's a guaranteed way to make yourself look like an idiot, and plenty of commentators and politicians have done exactly that.
So another interesting thing that kind of lines up with the corporate plan is we're getting close now to the end of this discount that the NBN has been offering retailers to encourage everyone to move up to 50 megabits per second. You might have noticed that a lot of retailers have been offering basically 50 megabit per second plans at 25 megabit per second prices, because there was this big push to get people onto 50. That discount ends at the end of October, which means the prices are going to go up for these people. So, Gus, do you think that people will go, oh, well, screw that, I'm going back to the other plan because I want me $10 a month back? Or do you think once they've got a taste for 50, they won't let it go?
We also haven't seen any evidence yet that actually the prices will go up because the discount disappears, but we also shift to an entirely different pricing model for buying overall wholesale stuff. So we'll have to wait till we get closer, but my feeling is the space is competitive enough that no branders want to go, oh, hey, we're going to put up the price on what you're charging. That's just not a sensible move right now. So I'll be keeping a close eye on it, but I actually think we're going to see that the plans remain pretty much the same, even when that particular honeymoon ends.
So, Alex, Google's been around for 20 years. Do you remember the good old days pre-Google? How did we get by?
Look, it was a different time. Onions were worn on belts, and if we wanted to find out something, we went and asked Jeeves, and we liked it. Damn it! Except that Ask Jeeves was not great, and neither was a lot of other competing search engines.
Yahoo or any of the others.
You've forgotten the two important ones there.
Alta
Vista and Answers. Remember Answers with a Z?
Oh, Answers. Yeah.
See, we're all just
like
old.
a reunion special.
But I think the thing is, Google got to the position got it to in search because that fundamental algorithm, the way they worked out interconnectivity between sites and pages, worked so well at unearthing the content people wanted. It was a better search service. But since then, of course, Google has radically changed in that 20 years. They've had a whole slew of products, most of which are dead. Mm-hmm. They've gone from do no evil to satisfy the shareholders, and they've shifted into hardware, and they know just about everything about us. Hi, Google overlords, by the way. And it's kind of fascinating to look back and see what they've done well and poorly, and what people have reacted to well and poorly. Gus, do you have a favourite dead Google product?
Well, my favourite dead Google product that I used all the time, and I hated it when they killed it, was Google Reader, which was their RSS reader. The only reason I don't miss that so much is that, in fact, when it died off, when they decided that RSS was something that was only used by tragic geeks and journalists, which was true, at that point, I just picked up with Feedly, which is basically exactly the same product, has the same keyboard shortcuts. So, that would be the one that I remember fondly, but I guess I've managed to come to terms with. Lots of their other things have been gigantic hits and misses. I remember going to a conference all about Google Wave, which was their strange, indescribable collaboration solution, and that thing was a dog. It was just terrible, and
It was a great idea. Like, there were some great ideas in there. They just didn't know nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew what to do with it. It was the classic build it and they will come.
There was one great idea in it that they kept, and it was the thing about, it's actually the technology from Wave is what makes collaboration in Google Docs work. The notion that you have multiple editing, commenting, that's actually a Wave successor. That was the one good idea in it. The rest of it, nah.
Was Wave the one that had invites that was kind of socially desirable for a while, or am I thinking of a different Google product that's now dead?
Well, that was Gmail at the very beginning.
Well,
not just Gmail.
Wave
was the same. Wave was hard to get into. And in the very beginning, Wave was actually interesting because it was all these early adopters got in there trying to build up this amazing thing, and then they just let everybody in and they destroyed it.
It fell to pieces so fast. So.
Never let people play with your toys, I suppose. Adam, anything in your Google usage history that you're either missing badly or glad they don't talk about anymore?
Well, the same as Gus, I went from using Google Reader to using Feedly because, being a journo, I was into RSS and I didn't like the fact that they were killing RSS and trying to move everybody on the social media to use that as a de facto RSS just so they could track what you were doing. Wave was really interesting, even though it didn't go anywhere. But I'd even forgotten about this until I saw this, but Google Desktop Search. I was using Google Desktop Search, 15 years ago. This is back when Desktop Search sucked the big one. When it was so
because the Google
bad.
One sucked too.
but it was still better than the ones that were built into desktop operating systems. I think I was using it to search my inbox, was one of the big ones for just searching document archives. But I do remember I was a keen user of that. But then maybe by the time they killed it off, maybe I was on a Mac and Spotify wasn't so bad. But at the time, I was a big fan of that one.
And it's 20 years of
And
Google.
of course, Google Plus.
Oh, Google Plus. I had someone add me on Google Plus the other day. I don't know what to do with that. It just
Did they
told me,
fat
hey,
finger it?
it just said, oh, this person's added you on, and it's like, I've never heard of this person. I haven't looked at Google. Google Plus is still there. Good grief. But it's not just 20 years of Google. It's also 10 years of the Chrome browser. And Chrome, of course, came along and very much, ate the rancid, fetid pile that was Internet Explorer's lunch. So I think my opinion on Internet Explorer is not going to be a secret to anyone. But it's now in that weird position where it seems to have as many fans as people who, loathe it for its memory usage and weird instabilities. Gus, is it your browser
It is my
of
browser
choice?
of choice, and it has been not quite from when it came out because I was always reluctant to switch browsers. But once I worked out it could deal with some of my weird requirements like keyword bookmarks, it was like, okay, I'm in there. And I still, everyone I know who complains about it crashing, I just go and look at their machine and they've got 60 tabs open, and I'm like, I don't think this is on the software, I think this is on you.
Only 60? Amateur.
I'm a firm believer, I've written about this many times, if you've got more than, in any given window, if you've got more than 10 tabs open, you're doing it wrong. And so clearly, Adam, you're doing it wrong on a commercial scale. But,
Yes, an industrial scale, I
the
would
interesting
say.
about the Chrome locking, like Chrome, it came in and became dominant, really, because it was better at the time. It got a nice leg up from the fact that, there was a good version of it for Android, even though it wasn't immediately the default browser for Android, is what people use. And it's the fact that the personalization, the fact that Google's overlords are tracking you, that's what makes it helpful. At the end of the day, I stopped having to have, I used to have that elaborate, back when I had IE and when I had Firefox, that elaborate structure of bookmarks all sold into folders so I could find what I wanted. Once I realized Google could remember all the sites I was likely to want to go to once I started typing their address, I didn't need that anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the last time I used a bookmark for that exact reason. But back in the browser war days, like that, the way you won as a new browser is to be lean. Because Internet Explorer was a dog, and then Firefox came in and it was nice and lean and fast. And then it bulked up and slowed down. And then Chrome came in and was the great new fast thing. And now Chrome's just as bad. And you see that Firefox now, I think they released a new version trying to say, hey, we're the skinny one now. So that was always a big push for a long time, is all the others will slow you down so much. We will get better, but they can't help themselves. It's just over time, we'll add this feature, that feature creep, and next thing you know, you can.
And what we'll forget is that it's the operating system now. Like 90% of the work that I do, I'm sitting in Chrome. I mean, I still write in a separate word processor, and people in our office think that's weird. Because
yeah, old man.
I use Chrome because it is indeed our work default. Although I'm in the very weird position where, in fact, I use 3 browsers simultaneously. Namely Chrome, Safari, and I'm one of the 3 people I suspect in the world still using Opera. But this is Safari's fault in a weird way. Part of the reason I use multiple browsers is actually to make it substantially easy for me to shift between different Google accounts, funnily enough. And Safari went through a patch not that long ago where it just decided it wouldn't allow me to download anything from Google Drive. So I thought, okay, what can I do about this? And it was literally at that point where Opera put out a press release saying, hey, we've got a new version. It's like, wow, I haven't looked at Opera in a long while. So Opera exists as my Google Drive. It's a strange arrangement, but it works for one of my accounts.
What, no links? No Mosaic?
Look, I wrote a piece actually a couple of years ago looking at modern websites on links and Mosaic and old versions of Netscape, which was quite fun to do in a tech geeky kind of sense. But let's just say, apart from security standards, they really haven't kept up with web formatting all that well. The web looks like a very different place in a text-only browser.
I'm just thinking, why weren't you running Parallels and then maybe running Microsoft Edge?
No one got time for that.
Because I'm not that much of a masochist. I'm a masochist, obviously, but not that much.
I'm a Windows user, and I literally, the only time I will occasionally launch Edge if you run into one of those handful of sites that Chrome just decides to have a freak out about, and then I launch Edge and I go, wow, it's better than IE, but it's still not good. Yeah, that's an advertising slogan, Microsoft. Feel free to have that one.
Well, that just about wraps up yet another episode of Vertical Hold. Thanks to Gus for joining us for the show.
Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly.
As always, we love to get your feedback on the show, so feel free to comment via Twitter or the Vertical Hold Facebook page.
Thanks everyone for listening, and remember, if you like what you hear, hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. Vertical Hold, Behind the Tech News, is proudly brought to you by Belkin.
What a man does with a pillow in his own hotel room is his own business.
Well, until the cleaners have to
And a
deal
bottle
with
of
it.
Thousand Island dressing.